So today we're speaking with John Heyer, who was formerly owner of Kettle Moraine Coatings in Jackson, Wisconsin. And John has been involved in the industry for a very, very long time, now enjoying his retirement. But we had a chance, had a chance to talk with him, and I thought the perfect person to talk for this series. John, welcome. Thanks for talking with me.
Glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, like I said, how is the retirement life treating you these days? Or are you still retired? You have so much going on.
I guess officially I'm retired. I managed to get myself involved in a number of volunteer things, a few industry things. So I find myself as busy as I was when I was working. Have a little bit more independence on when I do things, but and sometimes it shifts more to the evening when volunteer stuff takes place as opposed to during the day when you're at work.
Right.
So I like the independence. I like being involved. Some would say I'm over involved, but we'll see how that goes over time.
Exactly. I know you're involved in a lot. Well, let's start from the beginning. And you and I were just talking. It was the year 1972, and Nixon was president, and my Reds were in the World Series with the Oakland A's, and Pete Rose was playing back too many years. And that's when you really got your first foot into the door of coatings, right?
Right. I literally, some will say, how did you get involved? Well, I literally got a job. My wife and I were married in mid-September of 1972. We had decided to move to the Milwaukee area where her parents had been living for a while. I grew up in the Chicago area. We kind of wanted to get out of the big megapolis. And so we landed in Milwaukee, and I didn't have a job when we got married. And I was lucky enough to get one relatively quickly. It was at an entity called KMC Coatings, which was a division of a stamping company. And they were beginning to try to grow their custom coating business. They had gotten into plastisoling via the need to put that on some clips and clamps they made and sold. Then they became a little bit intrigued with outside work for that. Then they morphed into doing fluidized bed coating. They outgrew the facility they were originally doing it in and bought a plant in Jackson, Wisconsin. And that's where I walked in the door. They had placed orders on some powder coating equipment, and so they were beginning to get into that. But at that point, I think there was literally one other powder coating line in Wisconsin, and a few obviously spattered around the country. But it was a process with everybody thought at the time unlimited promise, and we're beginning to see an industry come into being that hadn't been there literally 5 years before.
Right.
It had made inroads in Europe before the U.S., but it was just beginning to in the U.S. And there were only a few players in the industry at that time. So KMC Coatings had committed to buy powder coating equipment from Gama. Hani Azam was the guy that was leading the charge, and he was in Connecticut, I think. But anyway, we held off putting that equipment in for a year to develop a line that was better adapted than we had. But we actually made it operational about 1973, and elements of that line are still in place. Although the spray booth and assorted other stuff has changed several times.
Right. I'm sure there wasn't any, like you said, getting the line started, running test parts, doing all these things. You didn't have a lot to fall back on to talk to other people and get, like I said, it was very, very new in the United States about that time. In the late 60s, it was coming through. Yeah. You kind of had the beginnings of pressure from the environmental movement to clean up air pollution. And with wet painting, and particularly when it's solvent-based painting, organic solvent-based painting, the solvent went right up the stack and was a part of air pollution. Right.
So, powder coating coming along at the time it did, it was a quick answer to everybody's prayers because there was no solvents anymore.
Right.
Now, I think there was a lot of assumed promise that didn't turn out to work out that way right away. But so, over the years, the industry has plateaued. and then as some of those issues get solved, it grows again, and then it plateaus, and then so on through the years.
Right. But it really, like you said, you went to work for them, eventually becoming owner president. Tell us about that, how you kind of got into that whole of being, going from walking in and getting a job to all of a sudden you're now the owner calling shots. How did that go?
Well, I was a chemistry major in college, and that kind of gave me a scientific background. And when I was originally hired, I was hired to become the coating expert and use that scientific background. So I immediately began interfacing with people selling coatings and pre-treatment equipment, pre-treatment chemicals, and all everything that went with it, and learning that way. But again, the main part of the company that owned us was they were metal stampers, and again they got into coating. So part of what we did in the building was coating the parent company's stuff. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I literally just read about this morning, and you look back in 1973, there was an oil embargo related to a Israeli Arab war, and as a result of that, oil related prices went through the roof, and the U.S. had a fairly significant recession. So as that recession evolved, the parent company kind of got tired of the custom coating business. It was in its infancy. It wasn't inherently overly profitable. It was a struggle to get business, on and on and on. And so they decided they were going to spin off the custom coating part of the business. And they came to the guy that was the general manager at the time and said, we're going to spin this off. If you have any interest in buying it, step up and say so, or forever hold your peace. And he said he was interested. And he came to several of us, one of whom was me, and said, do you have any interest in being part of this buyout? And I was in a position where I had some money, and so I jumped at it. And I came out of somewhat of a family business background, so it just seemed like the thing to do. So we bought that part of the business in November of 1975. There were three of us. So the general manager had a little over 50% of the ownership. I had about 35%. And a third guy, who was a manufacturer's rep, had the rest of it. And so, of course, he became our sales arm. I continued doing what I had started to do. And then, of course, the general manager was the president. And that situation lasted until 1986. And I guess the other thing of note is the three of us were kind of spread out in age. I was the young guy. I was 26. Well, by the time we bought it, I was 29. So I was just about to turn 30. And the president was in his 50s. The sales rep was in his, I think it was in his 40s. So we were nicely spread out. So in 1986, the president decided he wanted to retire. He wasn't that old, really, but in relative terms, but
right,
he was ready to get out. So we bought him out, and of course, given the nature of things, my interest in the company basically went from a mid-minority to majority, and the sales rep became the minority partner. So there were two of us left. I became the president. He continued doing what he was doing. That ownership held until the 90s. And ultimately, I bought 100% ownership in 2003, and then maintained that until 2019 when I sold the business.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So
yeah.
I've been out officially out for 3 years.
Right. No, it's interesting, like you said, you sort of got into it really in the infancy of the powder coating in the U.S. Like I said, I think it was in the late 60s and early 70s. It was really starting to pick up and such, and it's kind of it's been that long. That seems like a lifetime to a lot of people, but it is a long time.
It certainly was my professional career.
Yeah, I know you got actively involved in like a lot of the trade associations, and the Powder Coating Institute put you in their Hall of Fame. Congratulations for that. That's And but talk about being involved in the associations. I mean, it was, I guess, getting to know more about how to do your job, how to run your company, but also getting to meet peers who who were also owners of other companies too.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of be able to.
There were some the CCA, Chemical Coaters Association, was just getting started in those early years when I arrived, and some say that the Milwaukee chapter was not the original chapter, but I get the sense. I always thought it was, but so again, some of the old timers in finishing saw the value of having an association where the primary focus could be education. So I began going to meetings literally within a year or so of starting. Probably in the middle 70s, there was some attempt to form a custom coater group of finishers in that segment of the group, where there were a number of meetings held kind of between Chicago and Wisconsin with half a dozen of us and regular meetings, but it never quite got off the ground. And then as the powder coating industry grew as an industry, the powder coating industry got started up, and that's as much a industry group to grow the industry with education going along with it. And ultimately I joined that and became somewhat active. I was most active in chemical coaters in our local chapter. I went through the officer roles twice, and I'm actually still on the board, and I'm actually now on the CCAI's national board. So, I've been very involved in that over the years, and I've spoken I've gone to a number of custom coater meetings that PCI sponsored. I've been a member of a peer group since 2008, which has been of tremendous value to me. I always found over the years that as you got to know people, particularly if they were competitors, it was hard to. It was easy to compete with a level of respect and a level of ethics when I don't want to go as far as say they were your friends, but in some ways they were. So,
right, exactly.
And the other thing I discovered was, we all thought we had these secret ways we had our own secret ways of running our companies that we never wanted anybody to find out about it, because we didn't want to let our secrets out. But as time went on, we realized that these secrets really weren't secrets.
Right, exactly.
We did things maybe a little bit differently, but the basics were the basics, and we had to follow them. And
right.
Pricing was, everybody had similar costs. So,
right.
If you were too high or you were too low, there was probably something wrong.
Right.
So, what I found was there was just a lot to learn. And
right.
Every time I would talk to somebody, I would learn something. Hopefully they would learn something from me. And there was just a huge amount of value to the interaction with, either people in different aspects of the industry or people even that were in the same business I was in.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like knowing you all these years, I know you, you're one of the few custom coaters that, would go out and speak and talk about their operations and give presentations. And I remember a presentation, I think it was on OSHA and those type of things that you've given over the years. And I know you've kind of helped out some younger people who were entering the industry, as owners or managers. Really, I guess, and that's really, I think, key to the industry is really being there and helping those who, they quasi maybe your competitor, but also, they're also in the same industry, and you're all looking for, to grow the industry, really.
Right, and as long as there's enough business, most of the time there's enough business to go around. And as long as that's the case, we can all be profitable.
Right. So talk about, like I said, a couple of years ago, you were honored the Hall of Fame, like I said, for the Powder Coating Institute, which came from your peers. I mean, that had to be a very special honor. That was
a very special honor.
Right. I mean, to be recognized at that. What was your initial thought when you were told about that?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of amazement. How could that happen to me? But then again, part of it is that I knew I was a survivor for so many years.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it's just the recognition of me was very flattering and very very special.
Right. Right. And like I said, you do a lot, not just with this industry. I know you do a lot. I've seen it. You know, the Boy Scouts, you've been very active, involved in for most of your life, and then I've seen some things. Sometimes I was with your with job workforces in your community and your local colleges and things like that. So really, you've given back a lot in your career. I mean, besides running a business and being there and putting all those hours in of finding time for that. So it seems like that's very important for you to give back where you can.
It has been, without a doubt. And again, it's amazing how you gain by giving, and the number of people that I've met through all of these things. Sometimes it circles back and they end up having a business value. And again, you meet a spectrum of people and you learn from them. And they become friends.
Right. Yeah, that's actually that's the best value of it there. And like I said, I know I spent time with you in Europe. That was one of my. I think it was. I'd been on the job for maybe 6 months.
You were brand new.
Europe and brand new. Had no idea.
That was a fun trip.
It was a fun trip. For me, I had not been around business owners that much, and that was very key to me to really understand the finishing and coating industry. Is besides being a powder coater. Right, that's what you do, but you are a business owner. You have to generate profits to maintain it. But that was key of really learning from you and the rest of the, almost a dozen or so others. That was a very good learning experience for me to go and really hear pain points and what you all thought about, running a company in this industry. So that was really helpful. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm friends with a number of the people that went on. I'm still friends with a number of people that went on that trip. Mm-hmm. Some of which were in the same peer group I was and am in. Some that that were in other groups. So right. it was a foundation of some really good friendships.
Right. Well, like I said, I'll wrap this up. I've been here with a long time. I appreciate you taking time out, and again, of touching base with you, and appreciate your friendship over the years and your advice and everything that you did for me. And I again just want to thank you, and I'm glad we could have this time to share and talk. Okay.
It was a good opportunity, a good opportunity to connect with you.